Right. Hello and welcome to another edition of Buzz 101. Here we are again on a Friday, coming to you live from the Kutztown University Small Business Development Center. So today we've got another half hour of high-paced social media and digital marketing information for you. You might notice things are a little different. This time I'm joined by a different guest, so I'd like to introduce James Rodriguez, who's joining us today as our special co-host. So James, hello and welcome to Buzz 101.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here. And hello to everybody who's out there. It's a really fun show. It's exciting, and I'm glad to be filling in today.
Cool. So again, just like we do every week when we're here on Buzz 101 Live, what we like to do is we like to hear from you as well. So both James and I have some content, some material for you to go through. And if you have questions, if you have comments, you can reach us either through Twitter, through our handle at Kutztown SBDC, or you can also get to us via traditional email. So you can email us at sbdc@kutztown.edu. That's how the show works. We cover topics. We cover them quickly. So let's get rolling.
Okay, so I'm going to be doing the first story today. It was a news article that I noticed earlier this week. The toy company Hasbro has teamed up with a 3D printing company called Shapeways. And they've created a website called Super Fan Art. And what this website lets them do is that fans of the My Little Pony toys can actually go online, create their own statues, create their own art, and then sell them directly to customers. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So 3D printing is really cool if you've never seen it. I would encourage you to go look at YouTube videos right now and check it out. It's the coolest thing there is. But what they're doing, Hasbro, is really embracing this technology rather than fighting it. You know, I think this is going to be a real issue with copyrights and patents moving forward. But Hasbro is sort of ahead of the curve. They're saying, this is cool, our fans like this, they want to do this, let's let some of our fans make some money, and let's get people talking about us. So, Peter, what do you think about this idea?
I think it's great. I think what I see a lot now, especially when you look generationally, when you look at younger people, customized, unique, everything now you have that ability to make it yours, make it your own version. And I think people are really looking to actually get engaged and involved with their products, and what a great way to do this now with using the new technology, using new resources that are out there to actually allow your customers to create what they want. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it is. It's really cool. And I think takeaways for small businesses, I think that there's a number that we could look at. You know, the obvious one would be sort of food-based businesses. I'm imagining, the cupcake shops that have become so trendy. Why not do a fan-based cupcake? Let them design it. Let them get active on social media, start talking, pick flavors, make that cupcake, make the Jessica cupcake, and sell it in your store for a week. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, I think this is to me, it's maybe even a movement of using this global scale, but coming back to almost a local and now even an individual functionality, which to me is what I had thought technology was going to bring to us, this kind of individualized experience on a global level, and maybe now this is kind of the beginning of that. So let's hope, and we'll see where that comes. So take a look and check out and see, maybe you can build your own custom My Little Pony.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, a couple of things I wanted to bring up. I've been looking at some things, trends. I tend to look at what's happening, where are things moving in social media. And I was reading an article this week from Forbes that looked at some of the top 7 social media marketing trends for 2014. Here we are, almost well more than halfway completed with 2014. But there were a couple that I saw on there that we've talked about recently on Buzz 101, where micro videos like Vine, Mike Grimm talked about that last week. The expectation is that medium is still going to continue to grow. So Vine, again, was 6-second videos. Again, seems really small, but the expectation is that's going to be where success is. And also images. We've talked about how visual tends to be much more engaging than the traditional text post. Those things are on there. But one of the predictions kind of caught my eye, and I've been hearing about this for a long time, is that the prediction is Google Plus will become a major factor in the social media world. There was rumors a few years ago that I heard that Google was going to maybe put social activity into the search algorithm, but they've announced recently that that's not going to happen. So my question to you is Google Plus. Should small businesses use it if they're not there? What do you think about this if it's not going to be part of this search algorithm?
Sure. I think were it going to be part of the search algorithm is something that does make a lot of sense. Since it's not, though, since they have announced this, I don't see a whole lot of utility in there. I think what happens with a social network is you want to be on there because people you know are on there. So I'm on there because my friends are on there. Or if I'm a small business, I'm on there because my customers are on there. And if they happen to have an account because they're using other Google services, but they're not engaged there, they don't visit it, they don't talk to people, I don't see it as an effective outlet or an effective use of your time.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about some of the other social media outlets today, but I think that comes down to it. If your customers are there and they're engaging with you there, I think you need to stay there. But here's the kind of the paradox of this is you got to go there to find out if your customers are there or willing to engage with you. My personal experience is Google Plus. It's kind of everywhere that if you're using any Google-related services, it's there. But I don't see a lot of people using or engaging with it yet. But maybe that's just me.
No, I think in my experience with maybe yours, people talk about it, you see it everywhere, but I don't think anyone's using it.
Well, and so everyone knows. I mean, you can actually see. I guess it's over in this corner. Our Google Plus logo's up there. We're actually broadcasting this through Google Hangouts, which is part of Google Plus. So we're utilizing the services because honestly, they're really good. But we'll see if customers are there and willing to engage with you as we go forward.
Makes sense. So what we have for you next is just a call to action. What are your questions? What are your comments? We'd love to hear from you. We're here live in the studio. Get in contact with us, and we'll talk about it. Connect with us on Twitter at Kutztown SBDC, or you can email us the old-fashioned way, sbdc@kutztown.edu.
Okay, cool. All right. This is something that I bring up, I think every week, is how do businesses communicate through crisis? And I found a great article this week that talked about communicating through crisis, but using the style of our President Franklin Delano Roosevelt back in the 1930s. And I saw this, and it was related directly to social media. And at first glance, you think, what can be learned about communicating through social media from someone that was communicating 80 years ago, far before we had any of this technology? But when you started reading some of the things that they talked about, which were keep calm and have a clear voice, make promises that you can actually keep, and also empowering your audience, were three takeaways from the old FDR radio conversations and fireside chats. And I just saw this to be really interesting because one of the things I bring up often is marketing still comes back to the foundations. And if FDR was doing that 80 years ago, it might still work. But I wanted your opinions that here we are, 2014, learning lessons related to social media that no way really existed 80 years ago. Can we actually still learn lessons from FDR and how to communicate, especially through crisis?
Yeah, I think you absolutely can, Peter. I think if you're looking at FDR's advice, if you're looking at his fireside chats, what you're seeing is a great communicator. And the method has changed. Now we're on social media. Now we're broadcasting this live via Google Hangouts. We're on YouTube. You can talk to us with a Twitter feed. That's something different. The method has changed, but communication's communication. And what he was doing on the radio 80 years ago, to me, is absolutely still applicable. You need to talk clearly. You need to be calm. You want to use language your audience can understand.
That's good. You
don't want to overpromise. Better to underpromise and overdeliver, right? Empowering your audience. I think that these are key things. These are takeaways that you can use in any context.
Yeah, and to me, it comes back to that point of, especially being someone we're housed at a university, and we talk about a lot of times theory and history of things, and sometimes I notice sometimes students and myself, even when I was a young student, feeling that this doesn't have relevance in the current world that we live in. And maybe now it's age, maturity, whatever you want to call it. I'm starting to see that there was a lot of value in those lessons learned from long ago.
I agree. I think it's a mistake not to think back to this stuff. There's lots of lessons there. It's good stuff.
Good. So if you get a chance, go back, look at the great communicators from long ago, and translate that into today's social media format. And I think there's actually success that can be found by using some of those foundational tools that we used long, long ago.
Okay. For our next segment, I want to talk about Target's Best Year Ever campaign. I saw this week, and I thought it was pretty cool. So what Target's doing is they're releasing basically these 20-minute shows on YouTube. They've taken social media stars, people who really speak to a younger audience, and they're making over dorm rooms. So they bring in the designer. Every week they have their guest YouTuber, and the YouTubers are actually putting this on their own channel. They're not using Target's.
Okay.
And what they do, they go to a dorm room, they pick a lucky couple roommates, and they're going to remake the room. So they're doing it with the YouTubers, I guess, style and speaking out to their fans. They're going for young people who are going into college and might buy Target furniture, lighting, anything to decorate their dorms. And I thought it was a really interesting campaign. It's probably cheaper than just putting commercials on TV, but I think it could be far more effective at reaching a young audience. Your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that happened was we were researching to put on a show like Buzz 101 and doing some of this live broadcasting, but particularly broadcasting through YouTube. Our producer Dorian and I, we were pulling up videos and pulling up examples and looking at lighting and set design and things like that. It was amazing what we were finding were fairly simple videos, decorating tips, makeup tips, all these different things that young people were doing. But to me, what was amazing was the influence they were having. Many of these videos that we were finding from high school students had 5, 6, 7 million views. The comment lists were extremely long. So to me, when I think about what do I do as a business, and this is where I think Target is right on point here, is you want to engage with your audience. And if this is where young students ready to go off to college are looking for that advice, I think this is a really interesting way to become much more engaging than just having traditional commercials and flyers inside of a newspaper.
I absolutely agree. And I think that there's some takeaways for small businesses here too. I think it's a call to arms. Collaborate with local and relevant partners. People who are going to get you in front of people that you want to be in front of, do it, whether it's online or in person. If you are going to be online, if you're doing a YouTube channel, if you're a photography shop, why not do photo gear review or do tips or do lighting examples? If you're a tax preparation service, you have the slow season for a lot of the year. Why not be giving people tips, sharing with them, getting in front of people, and giving them relevant information?
Yeah, and I often find that it is youth that doesn't have the fear of doing some of these things, and I've done a lot of these do-it-yourself projects at home, and I wind up learning from 7, 8-year-olds how to build certain things, and
Sure.
I find, wow, that's amazing. But I also think that's a great opportunity for business that has a pre-established brand to offer something of value through this medium. So I think Target is on point, and we'll see how it turns out as we get into the fall and back to school time. All right, so again, I just want to remind you we're getting real close to that time where we're going to take some questions and comments from you all, the viewers. So again, you can reach out to us at any time throughout the show. Twitter is our preferred mechanism to take questions. So you can reach us there if you're on Twitter at the @ Kutztown SBDC. We'll be able to get those. Dorian is taking all of our questions as a producer on the screen. But that doesn't mean that he's not working very hard and collecting these questions so that we can hopefully have more of a two-way conversation as we get to the end of the show. But if you still want to email us, you can do that. We're also monitoring email channels right now. You can get us at sbdc@kutztown.edu. And again, these are just ways for you, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, anything that you want to share with us, let us know, because at about 11:22 this afternoon, James and I are going to start taking a look at some of those and give you some of our thoughts on the things that are running through your mind currently. So feel free, reach out to us at any time. We'd be happy to hear what's on your mind related to social media, online marketing, digital marketing, small business, or even the show. We had some questions about set pieces last week. We're glad to jump into anything that we have on hand. So give us a line if you have a question.
Okay. Next up, we had a story from this past weekend. There was a Southwest flight in which the dad sent off a tweet and big social media faux pas. So basically, there was a flight from, I believe, Denver to Minneapolis. The father had A-list boarding, so he would have priority boarding on the plane. His kids did not. The Southwest Airlines host would not let him get on with his kids because the kids did not have priority boarding, so he had to wait. So what did he do? He went on to Twitter and he tweeted, "Wow, rudest agent ever in Denver." He named the agent Gate C39, not happy at Southwest Air. This is where it gets interesting. So most companies, I think you probably just want to answer that and say, "Sorry for the disagreement. Here's a voucher. How can we make it up to you? Get in touch with our customer service people." I think that's the correct way to handle something like this. They didn't handle it the correct way, though. What they did is they actually got the guys off of the plane. They threatened them to get them off of the plane, threatened to bring the police in, and they said that they felt threatened by the tweet and demanded that they delete the tweets if they were going to get back on the plane. This blew up on social media. Southwest Airlines sent, I guess, an official statement out about a day later saying that they appreciate and are active on social media. It's not their intent to stifle customer feedback. Social media is very valuable with engaging with customers, and we are thoroughly investigating the situation. We've also reached out to the customer and offered vouchers as a gesture of goodwill. Is that good enough, Peter?
I don't know. I fly Southwest regularly. I've had great experiences with them. I've even had good experiences with their social media accounts. I was recently in Orlando. There were some storms. Flights were canceled. And while people were kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what was going on, I was able to check the social media, and I was able to go to this certain gate at the desk. There's an agent. I wound up being the second person in line, was able to reroute quickly because they were there and engaged with social media. So on one end, I appreciate that they're in that space, and I appreciate that they're using it. This one, however, it just seems really interesting to me that a tweet was a threat, although I didn't really read where the threat comes in on that.
Yeah,
but what I find very interesting is that simply by deleting the tweet, the threat has been removed, which I find that to be telling. And I will say I was actually kind of monitoring this live. It just happened to catch it on my own Twitter feed, and I found it very interesting. I don't know if they handled it well, although I think what they're doing, backtracking, is probably what they need to do, is get back to the source and say, we're investigating, we're going to take care of this.
Yeah, I think it goes back to this idea that there's no situation so bad that you can't make it worse.
Yeah.
So I think really what you have to do if you're a company is you talk about the importance of having a social media plan and talking about who's allowed to get on, who's allowed to do stuff.
Good.
To me, this is kind of a renegade employee situation. It's a little sad. It's bad publicity. And for you and your small businesses, I would say you're going to get bad feedback on social media, and that's okay. Respond to it in a responsible way. Be open with your customer. Leave a good impression for all the other customers who might see it. And I think that's really the way to handle it.
I think it's well said. Last segment I have for us today, before we get to your all questions and comments, I was going through some things, and I always see these things were related to your terms and conditions, and you get these long things, lots of legal language. I was just updating laptops this morning, and there's tons of things that I agreed to that, I'll be honest, I didn't read them all. But there's recently been some evaluation of what's been going on, and Facebook has been one of the spaces that's been, these terms and conditions have been a little bit more, let's say negatively reviewed than some other places. So one of the things that's been happening is people are looking at those terms and conditions, and we want to pull a few highlights out of there. I don't know if they're highlights, but a few elements of those and kind of discuss them, especially in light of some things that have happened recently in Facebook. There was some stories that they were doing research where they didn't tell participants that they were actually manipulating some of the feeds and with images and pictures to see if that impacted their emotions, which I think is very intense. But also there's this concept now that through these terms and conditions, Facebook's actually somehow now analyzing and monitoring tweets or posts, that you actually deleted and never actually posted. So we're kind of now almost getting into reading your mind. It's to me, it's now crossing the line where now we're getting into an invasion of my space as a user. But what I wanted to question is, if I'm a business and I'm engaging with my clients on Facebook, what are the implications of these terms and conditions? Because I'm operating in a space that maybe I ethically, morally, whatever it might be, I might not agree with all of those manipulations that are happening. How do you kind of balance that if you're a business and trying to interact with your customers in that space?
I think that's a really tough question. On one hand, you want to be where your customers are. And if your customers are on Facebook, I think that you have to make that choice. I mean, are you comfortable with it or not? And is it worth it to you or not? Personally, for me, a lot of this stuff makes me uncomfortable. I think if I were a small business owner, I'd have some serious qualms about it.
Yeah.
And this, we're pointing out Facebook, but I think that there are a number of websites, there's a number of services that are doing pretty much exactly the same thing. So, I want to come up with a really good answer, a really sharp answer, and I think it's going to be, we feel it out, we wait, we see what happens. The overwhelming trend that I see is that we're going too far into privacy issues and anonymity issues. We're really crossing over too far, and at some point maybe there's a swing back. Maybe we're just old fogies already, and the young people are going to lapse this and go ahead with it.
And that's fine. But I think you're right. I think this is, Facebook gets kind of a lot of the attention because it's so big. But I would have a feeling that almost anything that you're clicking I agree to probably has some elements of what Facebook is doing, and I think it's something that business has to think about. If we're going to encourage or ask our clients to engage with us in that space, what are we then also subjecting them to as a result of that request? All right, so now we're going to jump into our customer segment. We've got some questions and comments that our producer Dorian's going to give up to us. Again, we're kind of open here until about the 11:30 time frame, so you should be able to get to us and send us anything via Twitter, email. We'll try to answer whatever we possibly can as we go forward. So we've got a couple questions here. This one in from Kelly. Do you know of any Pennsylvania companies doing the type of personalization you mentioned earlier with the 3D printing and Ponies? James, I don't know if you know of anybody. I know of a couple people out there. I can't pull them up by name at this time, but I do know that there are some things going on with 3D printing regularly. I know there was an event recently in Harrisburg where they brought in a coalition of 3D printers. So I know this is something that we're trying to bring together and we're trying to get more attention to in the state of Pennsylvania, but there are some entities out there, specifically Pennsylvania-based, that are here to start bringing attention to the 3D printing kind of phenomenon and the potential that comes along with that. So that's something that I don't know offhand, but what I'll do as we kind of wrap up today's show, I'll make sure in our comments that we come back and post something there so that you can see some of the different events. I would also look into some things called meetups. A lot of times these tech groups have meetups, and I think you had some experience with interacting with some people that do that. But this is one way that I found to get access to some of these new technologies and new trends is go online, look for these meetups. They're kind of informal gatherings of professionals, and I think you could probably find something.
Yeah, I think meetup's a great way to find this kind of thing. I know, personally speaking, I have a client right now, and he does printing of T-shirts and different materials. So in my mind, that's absolutely personalization. If you can create a T-shirt for you. In the case of 3D Ponies, I haven't seen any clients yet, but I think it could be a really good business for somebody, right? I mean, we're always looking for little bits of stuff when when our gadgets break, it's always a little screw, or it's the guard on a beard trimmer or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And if you could just 3D print that little piece rather than buying a whole new one, I think that there's some money to be made there.
Yeah.
I think it could be a cool idea.
Yeah, and I know some of the universities have these. I was visiting. I was doing work for an entrepreneurship event at a local high school, and one of the students was so excited, and we talked about things, and he actually took me to their tech lab where they actually had a 3D printer. So they're doing this in high schools even now, which I find amazing. So I think it's out there. I just don't think it's gotten maybe the attention that it deserves. There's a lot of potential here, especially for Pennsylvania, to bring some manufacturing back into Pennsylvania. I think it's a great opportunity.
I agree. And 3D printers start on the low end at like $500-600 these days.
Yeah. Good. Couple other things that we want to take here. Just a quick question. I'm new to social media. How long is it going to take me to get started? Do you have any thoughts or experience as someone trying to start this from a business perspective? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit difficult. It is a time-consuming thing, and it's going to depend so much on who your market is, who you're reaching out to. I would say the most important thing is, if you're going to get on social media, be active. Dedicate a certain amount of time to it a day. It doesn't need to be 10 hours a week, but maybe it has to be 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, and just be responsive when people ask you questions. Put stuff out there. It's a two-way street, the communication. So you need to be putting a lot of communication out, and then responding when stuff comes back.
Yeah, and I think it's also this concept of organic growth. I think we talk about this probably every week, is that you need one person to be able to get your second person. You need two to get to four, and you need four to get to eight. You need all these things to happen. So I think consistency is critical with any kind of marketing. Be consistent, but you also have to be selling. So tell people when they come into your store, when you talk to them on the phone, when you send them an email, tell them, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, do something. But if you can, make sure that you're offering something in return for that like or that follow. Make sure you're giving them something of value in exchange for that like.
Right.
All right, so I think that's all the questions. Anything else? Just a couple comments on having James on here. We want some people are apparently very happy with bringing him on the show, and they want to know if he'll be back. And James, I think you probably will be a regular fixture here, at least on a monthly basis, right?
Yeah, I hope to get in here from time to time. I know Mike will be back, and I look forward to being on here. Good.
Yeah, so we'll probably have you on about once a month, and I know it's getting close to August, so hopefully I'll get a vacation at some point in here. But as we kind of wrap up here in the last couple of minutes, just wanted to get your thoughts. What are some of the takeaways, the lessons learned from the discussion today that mean something to you?
Oh wow, we talked about a lot of stuff. To me, I think the most interesting thing is when you talk about FDR style communication. Is go look at great communicators from the past, whether they're on social media, whether they're not. There are lessons to be learned, and go from there.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of this. I did a workshop on Wednesday, and we were talking about similar things about best practices, or there's this company that does this one thing really well, and what we kind of got back to was, so borrow it, steal it, do whatever, however you want to phrase it. If it's working somewhere else, try to see if you can maybe make that work within your business, within your element. At the university, oftentimes we call it best practices. So go out, identify best practices, take components that work. That's how this show came to be. We went online, we searched through a lot of YouTube broadcasts, and we took the things that we liked, we fitted into our culture, our philosophy, and our objectives, and we came out with something like this. And I'm pleased with it. I think it works, and I think we're going to continue to upgrade and build on it. But I think the same lesson can be learned from anything that we talk about, which is find and identify something that works and see if you can fit it into your culture and your lifestyle as well.
Makes sense to me.
Okay, good. Well, we're just about ready to wrap up here. So again, thanks for joining us on Buzz 101, the live edition. Again, this will be archived, so if you ever want to come back and watch any of these things, you can always come back to our YouTube channel and watch this on the archives. We're going to be actually doing more promos and uploads, so check back to our YouTube channel when you can, because we're going to be back with new content not only every week, but also throughout the week now we're going to be adding things. So thanks again, James, for joining us and filling in.
Great pleasure to be here. Look forward to joining you soon. Come back and see Peter and Mike next week.
All right.